The rain fell hard on the streets of Lagos that evening. Grace wiped her tired eyes as she cleaned up her small sewing shop. It was almost 7 o'clock, and the market was nearly empty. Most of the other traders had already gone home to their families. Grace was a 28-year-old woman who made her living sewing clothes for people in the market. She was not rich. In fact, she was very poor. Every day was a struggle to make enough money to feed herself and her elderly mother who lived with her in a small room they rented. But Grace never complained. She worked hard and tried to stay positive. As she locked the door of her shop, Grace heard something strange. It was a soft crying sound. At first she thought it was a cat. The market had many stray cats that searched for food in the garbage. But this sound was different. It was the cry of a baby. Grace stopped and listened carefully. The crying was coming from behind the row of shops, near the big metal trash cans where people threw their garbage. Her heart began to beat faster. Why would a baby be crying near the trash cans? She walked slowly toward the sound. The rain made everything dark and wet. Grace could barely see where she was going. When she reached the trash cans, she looked around carefully. The crying was louder now. It was definitely a baby. Then she saw it. Inside one of the metal trash cans, wrapped in a dirty, torn piece of cloth, was a tiny newborn baby. The baby was crying with all her strength. Grace's hands shook as she reached into the trash can and lifted the baby out. The little girl was cold and wet from the rain. Grace held the baby close to her chest, trying to warm her with her own body. Tears filled her eyes. How could someone do this? How could anyone throw away a precious baby like this? The baby was so small, so helpless. She could not have been more than a few hours old. Grace looked around the empty market. There was no one there. Whoever left this baby was long gone. She knew she had to do something quickly. The baby needed help. She needed warmth, food, and medical care. Grace wrapped the baby tighter in her own wrapper cloth and hurried through the rain to the small clinic at the edge of the market. The clinic was run by an old nurse named Mama Tund who had been working there for many years. When Grace burst through the door with the crying baby, Mama Tund jumped up from her chair. Grace explained everything quickly, her words tumbling out fast. Mama Tund took the baby and examined her carefully under the light. After a few minutes, Mama Tund looked at Grace and said the baby was healthy, just hungry and cold. She gave the baby some formula milk and cleaned her up. The baby stopped crying and fell asleep in Grace's arms. Grace looked down at the peaceful little face. The baby was beautiful. Her tiny fingers wrapped around Grace's thumb. In that moment, something changed inside Grace's heart. She felt a strong connection to this child. Mama Tund told Grace that they needed to report the baby to the police and the child welfare office. The baby would be taken to an orphanage where she would be cared for until someone adopted her. Grace nodded, but her heart felt heavy. That night, Grace could not sleep. She kept thinking about the baby. She imagined her in a crowded orphanage with many other children and not enough people to care for them all. She thought about how the baby had been thrown away like garbage. That innocent child deserved better. Grace knew her own life was difficult. She barely had enough money for herself and her mother. Their room was small. She worked long hours every day just to survive. Taking care of a baby would make everything much harder. It would cost more money. She would need to buy milk, diapers, clothes, and medicine. She would have less time to work. But Grace also knew something else. She knew that love was more important than money. She knew that every child deserved a chance at life. And she knew that if she did not take this baby, she would regret it for the rest of her life. The next morning, Grace went back to the clinic. She told Mama Tund that she wanted to keep the baby. She wanted to raise her as her own daughter. Mama Tund was surprised. She reminded Grace of all the difficulties. But Grace was determined. The process was not easy. Grace had to fill out many papers. She had to talk to social workers who asked her many questions. They looked at her small room and her simple life. Some of them did not think Grace could properly care for a child. But Grace did not give up. She begged them to give her a chance. Finally, after several weeks, the authorities agreed. Grace could foster the baby with the possibility of adopting her later. Grace was so happy she cried. She named the baby Joy because that is what the child brought to her life. When Grace brought baby Joy home to the market, the other traders had many different reactions. Some women smiled and congratulated her. They brought small gifts of baby clothes and food. They said Grace was a good woman with a kind heart. But others shook their heads and whispered behind her back. They said Grace was foolish. They said she was too poor to raise a child. They wondered why she would take on such a burden when she could barely feed herself. Some even said the baby was cursed and that is why someone threw her away. Grace heard all the talk, but she did not care. Every time she looked at little Joy's face, she knew she had made the right choice. Her mother was worried at first, but when she held baby Joy in her arms, her heart melted too. The two women worked together to care for the child. Life became much harder for Grace. She had to wake up earlier and sleep later. She spent more money on baby supplies and less on herself. Sometimes she went hungry so that Joy could have milk. But Grace never complained. When she saw Joy smile, all the struggles seemed worth it. Grace made a promise to herself and to baby Joy. She would give this child the best life possible. She would love her, protect her, and make sure she had every opportunity to succeed. No matter what happened, Joy would never feel unwanted again. The years passed quickly in the busy Lagos market. Grace worked harder than ever before. Every morning she woke up at 5 o'clock to prepare Joy for school. She made breakfast, braided Joy's hair, and made sure her school uniform was clean and neat. Then Grace would rush to open her sewing shop before the market got busy. But sewing alone was not enough to pay for everything Joy needed. Grace started taking extra work. After closing her shop at 6 in the evening, she would go to a nearby restaurant and wash dishes until midnight. On weekends, she washed clothes for wealthy families in the nice part of town. Grace was always tired, always working, but she never let Joy see her pain. Joy was a special child. Even as a little girl, she was curious about everything. She asked many questions about the world. Why is the sky blue? Where does rain come from? How do birds fly? Grace did not always know the answers, but she loved seeing Joy's bright, intelligent eyes full of wonder. When Joy started primary school, her teachers immediately noticed something remarkable. Joy was the smartest student in her class. She learned to read faster than other children. She could solve math problems in her head. She remembered everything she was taught. The teachers told Grace that her daughter was gifted. Grace's heart swelled with pride, but she also felt worried. Smart children needed good schools, books, and proper education. All of these things cost money. Grace worked even harder. She took on more sewing jobs. She slept only 4 or 5 hours each night. Her hands hurt from all the washing and sewing, but she never stopped. The other market women saw how hard Grace worked. Some of them helped when they could. Mama Biodun, who sold vegetables, would give Grace free tomatoes and onions for cooking. Papa Emeka, who fixed shoes, repaired Joy's school shoes without charging money. Auntie Folake, who sold fabric, gave Grace leftover cloth to make clothes for Joy. The community looked after Grace and Joy because they saw how much Grace loved her daughter. Joy noticed everything. Even as a young child, she saw how tired her mother was. She saw the worn patches on Grace's clothes. She noticed that Grace often gave Joy the bigger portion of food and ate very little herself. Joy understood that they were poor, but she also knew that her mother loved her more than anything in the world. When Joy turned 8 years old, something important happened. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Grace had just finished washing a pile of clothes for one of her clients. She sat down with Joy under the big mango tree behind their room. Joy was reading a book she had borrowed from school. Grace looked at her daughter for a long time. Joy was growing up so fast. She was no longer a baby. Grace knew it was time to tell her the truth. Joy deserved to know where she came from. Grace took a deep breath and called Joy to sit closer. She held Joy's small hands in her own rough, work-worn hands. Then, with tears in her eyes, Grace told Joy the whole story. She told her about the rainy night at the market. She told her about finding a crying baby in the trash can. She explained that Joy was not born from her body, but was chosen by her heart. Joy listened quietly. Her young face was serious as she tried to understand everything. When Grace finished talking, there was a long silence. Grace felt afraid. Would Joy be angry? Would she feel unwanted? Would their relationship change? But Joy surprised her. The little girl threw her arms around Grace's neck and hugged her tightly. Tears ran down Joy's face as she said, "You are my real mother. You saved me. You gave me life. I love you so much, Mama." Grace cried too. She held Joy close and thanked God for giving her such a wonderful daughter. That day their bond became even stronger. Joy understood the depth of Grace's sacrifice. She realized that Grace had chosen to love her when she did not have to. That kind of love was more powerful than any blood connection. After that conversation, Joy became even more determined to succeed in school. She studied harder than before. She wanted to make Grace proud. She wanted to prove that Grace's sacrifices were not in vain. Every evening, after Grace came home tired from work, Joy would show her the good grades she received. She would tell Grace about the praise she got from her teachers. These moments made all of Grace's hard work worthwhile. When Joy was in primary 5, she won a scholarship competition. The prize was free books and school supplies for 1 year. Grace was so proud she cried in front of all the other parents. That night, Joy made a solemn promise to her mother. She held Grace's tired hands and said, "Mama, one day I will take care of you. You will never have to work so hard again. I will make you proud. I will repay everything you have done for me. I promise." Grace smiled through her tears and told Joy that she was already proud. She said that Joy did not owe her anything. But Joy shook her head firmly. She meant every word of her promise. As Joy grew older, she continued to excel in school. By the time she finished primary school, she was the best student in her entire school. She won many awards and certificates. Grace kept every single one of them in a special box under their bed. But life was not always easy. There were days when Grace got sick from working too hard. There were times when they did not have enough money for food. There were moments when Grace wondered if she could continue. During these difficult times, Joy would comfort her mother. She would remind Grace that better days were coming. Grace's own mother, Joy's grandmother, passed away when Joy was 10 years old. It was a sad time for both of them. The old woman had loved Joy deeply and had helped Grace care for her. After the funeral, it was just Grace and Joy against the world. But they had each other and that was enough. Grace continued working her multiple jobs. Joy continued studying with all her might. They lived simply, ate simply, but loved deeply. Their small room was filled with more happiness than many big houses in the city. The market community watched Joy grow up. They saw her transformation from a baby found in trash to a brilliant young girl full of promise. Many people said it was a miracle. Grace always said it was love. Love had the power to change everything. When Joy finished secondary school, she was the top student in her entire state. Her exam scores were so high that several universities wanted her to study with them. But Joy had only one dream. She wanted to become a doctor. She wanted to help sick people, especially children. The problem was money. Medical school was very expensive. Grace had saved every naira she could over the years, but it was not nearly enough. Grace felt heartbroken. Her daughter was so brilliant, so deserving, but they simply did not have the money for university. Then something amazing happened. Joy applied for a national scholarship program for excellent students from poor families. Thousands of students applied, but only 20 would be chosen. Joy studied hard for the entrance exam and prayed every night. 3 months later, a letter arrived. Joy had won the scholarship. She would study medicine at the University of Ibadan, and everything would be paid for. Her tuition, books, accommodation, and even a small monthly allowance. Grace cried tears of joy when she heard the news. All their struggles, all the sacrifices had led to this moment. But when the excitement faded, reality set in. Ibadan was far from Lagos. Joy would have to leave home. She would have to leave Grace. For the first time in Joy's 18 years of life, they would be separated. The day Joy left for university was one of the hardest days of Grace's life. She helped Joy pack her few belongings into one small bag. At the bus station, Grace held her daughter tight and did not want to let go. Joy was crying too. She promised to write letters every week and call whenever she could. Grace stood at the bus station long after the bus disappeared down the road. She felt empty inside. She had spent 18 years caring for Joy every single day. Now, for the first time, she would go home to an empty room. That night, Grace could not sleep. The room felt too quiet without Joy's presence. At university, Joy threw herself into her studies. Medical school was harder than anything she had ever done. She had to study long hours every day. She had to memorize thousands of facts about the human body, diseases, and treatments. Many students struggled and some even gave up. But Joy never quit. She remembered her mother's sacrifices. She remembered her promise. Joy wrote letters to Grace every week just as she had promised. She told Grace about her classes, her friends, and her dreams. Grace treasured every letter. She would read them over and over until the paper became soft and worn. But there was something Grace did not tell Joy. Grace's health was getting worse. She had started feeling very tired all the time. Her vision became blurry. Her feet hurt and sometimes she felt dizzy. She went to the clinic and Mama Tun tested her blood. The diagnosis was diabetes. Mama Tun told Grace she needed to take medicine every day, eat better food and rest more. But Grace could not afford good food or medicine. She could barely afford to eat at all. And she could not rest because she still had to work to support herself and send small amounts of money to Joy. Grace decided not to tell Joy about her illness. Joy was working so hard at medical school. Grace did not want to distract her or worry her. So Grace kept her sickness a secret. She continued working her multiple jobs, even though her body was getting weaker. The years passed. Joy excelled in medical school. She was always among the top students in her class. She worked in hospitals during her training and discovered that she loved working with children. Sick children touched her heart in a special way. She decided to specialize in pediatric surgery. Joy sent money home whenever she could from her small scholarship allowance. She saved money by eating very little and never buying anything for herself. Every spare naira went to Grace. She felt guilty that she could not do more. She felt guilty that she was not there to help her mother. Sometimes Joy would call Grace from a payphone. She would ask Grace how she was doing. Grace always said she was fine, that everything was good. Grace's voice sounded weaker each time they talked, but Joy was too busy with her studies to notice the warning signs. In her 5th year of medical school, Joy came home to Lagos for a short visit during the holiday break. She was shocked by what she saw. Grace had lost a lot of weight. Her skin looked gray and unhealthy. She moved slowly like an old woman even though she was only in her 40s. Joy questioned Grace about her health. At first, Grace tried to hide the truth, but Joy was a medical student now. She could see the signs of illness. Finally, Grace admitted she had diabetes. Joy was devastated. She felt terrible for being away. She felt like she had abandoned her mother. Joy wanted to stay in Lagos and take care of Grace, but Grace refused. She insisted that Joy return to school and finish her degree. They had come too far to give up now. Grace promised to take better care of herself. Reluctantly, Joy returned to Ibadan, but her heart was heavy with worry. Joy studied even harder than before. She wanted to finish medical school as quickly as possible so she could come back and care for Grace properly. She worked day and night, barely sleeping. Her professors noticed her exceptional dedication and skill. Finally, after 6 long years, Joy graduated from medical school. She graduated with the highest honors in her class. She was now Dr. Joy. At the graduation ceremony, Grace sat in the audience. She looked frail and sick, but her face glowed with pride. Her daughter, the baby she had found in a trash can, was now a doctor. After graduation, Joy specialized in pediatric surgery. She completed her training at a teaching hospital in Ibadan. Then, as soon as she could, she returned to Lagos. She got a position as a pediatric surgeon at one of the best hospitals in the city. Dr. Joy's first priority was Grace. She used her first salary to rent a small but comfortable apartment. She brought Grace to live with her. She took Grace to the best doctors and made sure she got proper treatment for her diabetes. For the first time in years, Grace could rest. She did not have to work anymore. Joy was finally able to take care of the woman who had sacrificed everything for her. Dr. Joy worked at the big hospital in Lagos 6 days a week. She performed surgeries on sick children and saved many young lives. The hospital administrators were impressed by her skill and dedication. She was one of the best pediatric surgeons they had ever seen. Her salary was good, much more money than Grace had ever made in her entire life. Every evening, Joy came home to the apartment she shared with Grace. She would cook dinner for both of them and they would eat together, talking about their day. These were precious moments for Joy. After so many years of separation, she was finally able to care for her mother properly. Grace's health improved with regular medicine, good food, and proper rest. The color returned to her face. She gained some weight. She could walk without pain. But the doctors told Joy that the damage from years of untreated diabetes was permanent. Grace would never be completely healthy again. Her kidneys were weak and her heart was not strong. Joy knew her mother's time was limited, which made every day together even more valuable. One evening, Joy came home from the hospital looking thoughtful. She had operated on a 7-year-old boy that day. The boy had no parents. He lived in an orphanage. During the surgery, Joy kept thinking about her own story. She thought about how lucky she was that Grace had found her and chosen to raise her. Joy sat down with Grace and shared an idea that had been growing in her heart. She wanted to start a foundation to help abandoned children. She wanted to give other children the same chance that Grace had given her. Grace's eyes filled with tears. She told Joy it was a wonderful idea. Over the next few months, Joy worked hard to make her dream a reality. She used her savings to register the foundation. She called it Grace's Gift Foundation, after her mother. The foundation's mission was simple: to help abandoned and orphaned children get education, healthcare, and loving care. At first, the foundation was very small. Joy could only help a few children. She paid school fees for 3 orphans. She provided medical care for children who could not afford it. She visited orphanages and brought food and supplies. Grace helped too, despite her poor health. She sewed clothes for the children and spent time talking with them, giving them the love and attention they desperately needed. Word about the foundation spread quickly. A newspaper reporter heard about Dr. Joy's story and wanted to write an article. Joy was hesitant at first. She did not want attention for herself. But Grace encouraged her, saying that publicity might help the foundation get more support. The article was published on the front page of a major Lagos newspaper. It told the story of how Grace found baby Joy in a trash can and raised her alone despite terrible poverty. It described how Joy became a doctor and now dedicated her life to helping other abandoned children. The article was titled From Trash to Treasure, a story of love and hope. The response was overwhelming. People from all over Lagos and even from other parts of Nigeria were moved by the story. Donations began pouring in. Some people sent money. Others sent clothes, food, and books for the children. Business owners offered to sponsor children's education. Volunteers came forward to help with the foundation's work. Within 2 years, Grace's Gift Foundation had grown significantly. Joy was able to help 50 children. She opened a small shelter that could house 20 orphan children. She hired teachers and caregivers. She made sure every child received proper food, education, and medical care. The old market community where Grace had worked for so many years was especially proud. Mama Biodun, Papa Emeka, and Auntie Folake came to visit Joy's office. They brought gifts and told everyone they knew about what Grace and Joy had accomplished. They said it proved that one act of kindness could change the world. The foundation organized a big celebration for its 2nd anniversary. Hundreds of people came, including many of the children the foundation had helped. Government officials attended. Television cameras recorded everything. Grace sat in a special chair at the front, weak but smiling. Joy stood at the microphone and gave a speech. She told the crowd that none of this would have been possible without Grace. She explained that Grace had shown her what real love looked like. Grace had taught her that family was not about blood, but about choice, sacrifice, and commitment. Joy said that every child they helped was a tribute to Grace's courage and kindness. The audience stood and applauded for a long time. Many people were crying. Grace was crying too. She had never imagined that her simple decision to save a baby from a trash can would lead to all of this. She had not saved just one life that rainy night. She had started a chain of love that was now touching hundreds of lives. But even as the foundation flourished, Grace's health continued to decline. The diabetes had damaged her body badly over the years. Her kidneys were failing. Her heart grew weaker. Joy took her to the best doctors, but they all said the same thing. The damage was too severe. Grace needed to rest and enjoy whatever time she had left. Grace accepted her fate with peace. She had lived a good life. She had raised an amazing daughter. She had seen Joy achieve things she never dreamed possible. She had witnessed the foundation helping so many children. What more could anyone ask for? On good days, Grace would visit the foundation's shelter. The children loved her. They called her Grandma Grace. She would sit in a chair and the children would gather around her. She told them stories and gave them advice. She told them that no matter where they came from, they could become anything they wanted to be. She told them to never give up, to work hard, and to always remember to help others. Joy watched these interactions with a mixture of joy and sadness. She was happy that Grace could see the impact of their work. But she also knew that Grace was fading. Every week, Grace seemed a little weaker, a little more tired. The foundation continued to grow. By its 5th year, Grace's Gift Foundation was helping over 200 children. Joy received awards and recognition for her humanitarian work. But she always insisted that Grace deserved all the credit. Everything she did was because of what Grace had taught her about love, sacrifice, and the value of every human life. In early 2023, the Nigerian government started a new program. They created a national DNA database to help reunite families who had been separated. Many people had lost children during wars, natural disasters, or through abandonment. The government hoped this database would bring families back together. Joy heard about the program on the news. She thought it was a good idea, though she never expected it would affect her own life. One day, a letter arrived from the National DNA Registry. They were asking all adopted children and orphans to voluntarily submit their DNA to help build the database. Joy decided to participate. She was curious, though she did not expect to find anything. After all, 30 years had passed since Grace found her in that trash can. Joy went to the registry office and gave a simple cheek swab. The process took only 5 minutes. She forgot about it and went back to her busy life at the hospital and the foundation. 3 months later, Joy received a phone call that changed everything. A woman from the DNA registry said they had found a match. Joy's biological mother was alive and looking for her. Joy's hands trembled as she held the phone. She had never really thought about her biological mother before. Grace was her mother in every way that mattered. The registry official gave Joy a name and phone number. The woman's name was Linda Okonkwo. Joy recognized that name immediately. Linda Okonkwo was a famous businesswoman in Lagos. She owned several successful companies and was known for her charitable work. But Joy had no idea why such a wealthy woman would have abandoned a baby 30 years ago. Joy did not call right away. She needed time to think. She talked to Grace about it. Grace, now very frail and spending most of her time in bed, encouraged Joy to meet with Linda. Grace said that everyone deserved a chance to tell their story. Joy finally agreed. They arranged to meet at a quiet restaurant. Joy arrived early, her heart pounding with nervousness. When Linda Okonkwo walked in, Joy recognized her immediately from newspaper photos. Linda was an elegant woman in her late 40s, well-dressed and confident. But when she saw Joy, her confident exterior crumbled. Tears filled her eyes. Linda sat down and began to tell her story. 30 years ago, she was just a 16-year-old girl named Linda. She came from a very poor family in a small village. When she became pregnant, her family was furious. They said she had brought shame upon them. The father of the baby denied everything and abandoned her. Linda's family forced her to hide the pregnancy. When the baby was born, they told her she had to get rid of it. They said they could not afford another mouth to feed. They said if she kept the baby, they would throw both of them out with nothing. Linda was terrified and desperate. She was just a child herself. On that rainy night in 1993, Linda wrapped her newborn daughter in cloth and placed her near the market trash cans. She chose that spot because she knew the market was busy. She hoped someone would find the baby quickly. Before she walked away, Linda did one thing. She had marked the exact time and date on a piece of paper and tucked it in the cloth with the baby. She also remembered a small birthmark on the baby's left shoulder. Linda cried as she told this story. She said that abandoning her baby was the worst thing she had ever done. The guilt never left her. Every single day for 30 years, she wondered what happened to her daughter. Was she alive? Was she safe? Was she loved? After leaving her village, Linda worked hard to build a new life. She educated herself, started small businesses, and eventually became successful. She never married. She never had other children. She said she did not deserve happiness after what she had done. Then, 2 years ago, Linda saw the newspaper article about Joy and the foundation. When she read that Joy was found as a baby in a trash can at the market in 1993, her heart nearly stopped. She looked at the photos carefully. She calculated the age. Everything matched. Linda became convinced that Dr. Joy was her daughter. Joy sat in shock as Linda revealed the next part. Linda said she had been the foundation's largest anonymous donor for the past 2 years. She had donated over 5 million naira to Grace's Gift Foundation. She had followed every news story about Joy's work. She had watched from a distance as Joy helped hundreds of children just like Joy had once been. Linda said she never planned to reveal herself. She thought Joy was better off not knowing about the mother who had abandoned her. But when the DNA database program started, Linda registered her DNA, hoping for a miracle. And the miracle happened. Now, sitting across from Joy, Linda spoke through her tears. She said she was not there to reclaim Joy as her daughter. She knew she had no right to that title. Grace was Joy's real mother. Grace had earned that honor through years of sacrifice and love. Linda said she only wanted forgiveness. She wanted Joy to know that abandoning her was not because she did not love her, but because she was young, terrified, and desperate. Joy did not know how to feel. She felt angry at the teenage girl who had thrown her away. But she also felt sympathy for that frightened 16-year-old who had no choices. Most of all, Joy thought about Grace. Grace was the one who truly deserved recognition. Joy took Linda to meet Grace. When Linda saw the frail woman lying in bed, she fell to her knees beside the bed and wept. She thanked Grace over and over for saving Joy, for loving her, for giving her the life Linda could not provide. Grace, weak but clear-minded, took Linda's hand. She told Linda that she forgave her. She said that sometimes God works in mysterious ways. Linda's desperate act had brought joy into Grace's life, and joy had brought more happiness than Grace had ever imagined possible. Linda made a decision that day. She would establish a massive trust fund of 50 million naira in Grace's name. The money would ensure that Grace's Gift Foundation could continue helping children for many years to come. It would be her way of honoring the woman who had truly been a mother to her biological daughter. Grace lived for 2 more months after that meeting. Her health finally failed, but she died peacefully at home. Joy held one hand and Linda held the other. Grace's last words were about love. She said that love was the only thing that truly mattered in life. She said she was grateful for every moment, every struggle, every joy. At Grace's funeral, thousands of people came. The children from the foundation sang songs. Joy and Linda stood together, both crying, both grateful for the remarkable woman who had changed so many lives by simply choosing love over indifference on one rainy night 30 years ago.